back in 2006, I put my hands on the Vintech Audio 473 mic preamps. And that's because I was looking to get that very nice, warm, rich NEVE sound that a lot of people like. And the preamps on this unit are based and modeled after the 1073 NEVE preamp. And I've been working with these since then. So that's almost 18 years now. And last year when I got to NAMM, I saw that Heritage Audio came up with a sound interface lineup that is called the I73 Pro. And the special thing about this interface lineup, it has 1073 style preamps built in the interface, which is quite unique and quite nice. So since I'm used to this NEVE 1073 sound, I decided to get in touch with Heritage Audio, and they sent me the I73 Pro Edge version, which I'm going to cover later in this video. But first, let's have a quick listen of a recording I made with my good friend Craig Silver using the preamps on this interface.
Mom said there's mail from the college, gave me the look like something wasn't right. You called me crying and telling me, how can we be apart? I loved you from the start, still we got those sweet summer nights, laying beside you underneath the stars, talking about the future. It's those wide open fields, running till we can't breathe, and then we'd start to soak up those sweet summer nights.
Now, on top of the 1073 style preamps we have on this interface, it does offer more, like for example the low latency monitoring mixer, which we're going to look at in just a moment. But first, let's look at the three versions we have of the I73 Pro. The first one being the Pro 1 version, which only has one preamp. Okay, so that one is a bit more affordable. It goes out at $649 on Sweetwater, which I think is a very good price considering the fact that we have a 1073 style preamp that is going to be way more expensive if you buy it through a analog unit like my Vintech 473. You know, I think I paid at the time back in 2006 at around $3,200 US or so, and that doesn't include an interface like we have here. It's only the preamps. So $650 is the Pro 1 version. The Pro 2 version goes out at $999 US, which will give you two 1073 type preamps. And the one that I have is the Pro Edge version, you know, which is very similar to the Pro 2, which also have two preamps, but it's going to also have an extra two outputs, and on top of that 8 extra in and out of ADAT light pipe channels, which can be very useful for a larger setup. And this one goes out at $1,499 US on Sweetwater. I'm going to leave all the links down below. Okay, I made a quick comparison recording earlier to compare the sound coming out of the i73 interface with these 73 style preamps with a clean preamp that I have on my XR4 interface, which is my current sound interface that I use in my studio. And it goes like this. This is a tester recording where I compare two different preamps. The first one comes from the Heritage Audio i73 that uses NEVE 73 style preamps. And the second one is the clean style preamp found on my XR4 sound interface by Stangberg. So again, this recording from the i73 sound interface, and this recording from the XR4 sound interface that uses clean style preamps. Okay, now we're not talking about a mind-blowing difference between these two versions, but we do get a cleaner sound, you know, more neutral from the XR4 clean preamp. It sounds pretty straightforward, not colored at all, you know, nice balanced frequency response. So this is what we get with a clean neutral type of preamp. Now when it goes to the 73 style preamp, again, not a huge difference. It's very subtle, but still a bit more colored, a bit more rich, full-bodied overall. There's also a bit more low-end presence that gives us a bit more warmth in general, but again, in a very subtle way. Now, I also made another comparison between the I73 preamp with the Vintech 473 preamp that I'm used to work with. Now, this is not an original NEVE preamp, but I'm telling you, it's darn close. So let's have a listen. This is a test recording where I use two different preamps. The first one is the NEVE 73 style preamp found on the I73 sound interface by Heritage Audio. And the second one is also a NEVE 73 style preamp, but this time around it's found on a hardware unit, which is the Vintech 473. So again, this audio comes from the I73 sound interface, and this audio comes from the Vintech Audio 473 preamp. Now this is even closer than the other example. The only thing I can say though is that on the Vintech 473 side, that preamp sounds a bit more dark compared to the preamp found on the I73 sound interface. That is the main difference I can hear so far. You know, I think they both have the low-end presence and the rich and full-bodied character, but I'm feeling that I'm getting a tiny bit more mid-range from the I73 interface. But again, so close. So I think Heritage Audio did an amazing job with these preamps. Now, if we look at the front of the interface itself, we have two JFET DIs as instrument inputs and also two headphone outputs. The headphones are controlled by the dual encoder we have on the top of the interface. So the bottom of the encoder knob is going to control the headphone level and the top will control the monitor level. So this is actually very well done. I kind of like that. We have two red Marconi knobs for input gain level and two knobs for the output gain level. Now, the cool thing about this, it's designed the same way that it is on my Vintech 473 preamps, where I have access to the input level and also the output level, okay, with those two knobs. And this is good to craft the character of the sound, okay, get more out of the preamp. So for example, if I want to get a bit more of harmonic saturation going on through the preamps, I can just boost the level of the preamp up and using the output gain level to balance the level out. But if I want to get a more cleaner sound, I'm going to do it the other way around, where I bring my preamp level lower and bring up the level with the output knob. This is going to give me a more clean sound. So it gives the flexibility to get a bit more out of these preamps. So I kind of like that. On top, we have some buttons for phantom power, also the pad, the phase reverse button, also have the mono, mute, dim button, and also the LED VU meter to get the reading of the input level or the output level. Now, these two green buttons, they are actually not buttons. They are quite big though, but they are actually the Class A transformers inside the sound interface. In my opinion, it looks pretty cool, but it does explain the size of these interfaces. You know, they are quite bigger than your typical 1 or 2 channel interface. Now, if you look at the back of the interface, we have the USB-C connector because this is a USB interface, but it's not self-powered. So you will need to plug that in using the power adapter on top of the USB connector for your computer. There's also a MIDI DIN for MIDI in and out. And on this version of the i73, since I'm using the Pro Edge, I have the 8-channel in and out ADAT connectors. On the Edge version, we have 4 inputs. The 2 first inputs are mic inputs and line inputs, depending on the connector you use. And also input 3 and 4 are fully line inputs. And there's 4 outputs available on this version, the 2 first for your monitors and 2 extra outputs for other needs. Now, the low latency mixer is actually pretty nice to work with. But what I like about this whole mixer is the DSP FX we have access to on the preamp channels only. With the Edge version, again, I have 2 extra inputs, line inputs. I don't have any DSP effects I can insert on those inputs, only on the preamp inputs. And this will come with some DSP Heritage Audio plugins, like the Brit Strip, which is a channel strip based on the Heritage Audio analog unit. There's also a bass amp, a guitar amp, a tape machine, and also the successor compressor, which is also based on the Heritage audio unit. The Heritage Tape O Flex and the Plate Reverb are both native plugins only and not DSP, but you can use all of these plugins natively in your DAW when mixing. So let's say I want to monitor myself with some compression. I can simply use the compressor out of the Brit strip, which works pretty well, and using that compressor for monitoring only. And the fact that it's a DSP effect plugin, I'm not going to be distracted with high latency problems. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and honestly, I don't hear any latency when recording with these plugins. And this is very, very cool, because on my side, I do hate recording with latency, especially when it comes to recording vocals. Even if I monitor through a DAW at a very low buffer size, I still can feel the latency when recording vocals. So I always use direct monitoring from the interface directly to avoid latency when recording vocals. But with this interface, I'm able to monitor straight from the interface itself with plugins, and honestly, I don't hear any latency. It's very, very well done. Now, another cool feature is the send channels, where I can insert like a reverb, a delay, and add this as a monitoring effect only, not to be recorded, only to monitor with, while recording vocals, for example, which is very useful. And I can use any VST3 plugins I want. It could be a plugin by Heritage Audio, or it can be another plugin. And I can add the amount of send effect I want on every channel from that interface, which is quite nice. Something very useful on this interface is the fact that we have like 2 inputs per channels on the preamp channels. Let me explain. So if I go in CUBASE and I look at the input buses I have, for channel 1, I have 2 options, the dry input or the wet input. And this is so cool. So let's say I record with compression. I can actually record on one track the wet signal, meaning the compressed signal. And as a safety recording, I can create myself a second track and set that one up to the dry input. So this way I record a dry, clean signal without compression at the same time as I do with the compressed track, which is so useful. And this is what I did with Craig's vocals. So I have the vocal I recorded with a compressor using the wet input. And on the second channel, I recorded the same performance, same recording, but this time around with the dry input. So I have a version without any compression.
Mom said there's mail from the college. Gave me the look like something wasn't right.
I really like this feature, but note that the send effects are never going to be recorded even using the wet input. So this is a very good interface for someone who is not ready to invest into an external hardware preamp, but would like to have access to a high quality colored type of preamps. So let me know what you think. If you want to check it out, I'm going to leave the link down below. Until next time, take care and see you.